I want to add my welcome to Lorenzo and the Macedo family and the many supporters he has here today. Also, if you aren't here regularly, please feel especially welcome. Today, in the church calendar, we slip from Easter to ordinary time, a good time to consider some of the ingredients of the Christian faith in the thick of life. Faith is action. The fact that we're all gathered here is faith, because faith is action. It has taken quite a bit of action for many of you to get here, even some from abroad. But I also know many regular people here travel from far and wide. That's faith. Abraham is held up as our father of faith, and we know he was also an action man. He left his own country and people aged 75 and lived out a sort of crazy love affair with his God, life. Not always doing the right thing, but God loved him anyway, like a friend. God gave Abraham this huge blank check of a promise. I have made you the father of many nations. And Abraham believed God, even though his faith made no human sense. He had no heir, and he and Sarah were nearly 100, hoping against hope. Whatever he was thinking, it was foolishness. He lived on faith, but weren't his actions running ahead and misplaced? Faith is imagination. Faith takes action, but springs from imagination. Albert Einstein said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world." As your children's chaplain, I have been advocating godly play because it supports imagination. Let's be aware, nurturing imagination is crucial to being human, and our modern education often is not. Like all children of 5 or 6, I had a great imagination. I remember life was starting to get tough. Feeling sorry for myself was a common emotion. You see, my 2 younger brothers had arrived, only 2 years apart, and my mum was expecting again. I seemed to be getting the blame for everything. Perhaps that's why in Sunday school I paid close attention to the story of the young boy Samuel, who, when weaned, his mother lent him to the Lord at the temple. Why can't I be lent to the Lord? I mused. At least Eli, the high priest, seemed pleased to have a helper around, and Samuel got a new coat every year to prove his mother hadn't completely forgotten him. I wanted to be that boy priest, Samuel. Looking back now, in my imagination then, God first excited me to one day be his priest. Faith takes time. It takes time to grow, deepen, and bear fruit. To be aware of time makes us aware of history. In this ordinary time that is passing every day, by faith, we make history. The tiny faith, like a mustard seed, is not lost to God. Tax collector Matthew was at work. He was living his ordinary life when Jesus called him. Something of Jesus caught his imagination and gave him the faith to follow. This is Matthew's account of his own calling. Jesus parties with tax collectors and sinners, his friends. People of wealth, complicit with the political and economic system. Yes, Jesus is right there, spending time saying God desires mercy, not sacrifice, to his critics. And Matthew finds faith in him, the miracle of a rich man finding his way into the kingdom of heaven. As Desmond Tutu has said, God has a soft spot for sinners. His standards are quite low. After much time, Matthew's name came to author the first gospel, and his faith became so strong that he was martyred for speaking truth to power. I easily forget God, slow to anger and abounding in love, has given us all time to find and grow in faith. Faith has heart. In the desert, God's people were told again and again, do not harden your hearts. The story we heard of the daughter who just died. Can you not feel the sheer terror of the man who came and knelt before Jesus? We dare to imagine his daughter was his delight and joy. For him, she embodied everything beautiful about life, as only children can. He loved her with all his heart. But now she had just died and was only a body, without life. I imagine he didn't care for any comfort. Every cell in his body must have been screaming, no, no, no. I want her back. Can you feel the sheer, utter terror of this man who came and knelt before Jesus? But if we think about it, we could say he would not be the first father to lose one of his children to illness or accident. Why doesn't he accept she has died? It's fair enough. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. But again, he somehow found faith. Faith from an agitated, broken heart, hoping against hope. He'd heard enough about Jesus, his compassion. He would run and find him, kneel and beg him to raise her. And the moment he did that, Jesus knew the pain and walked with this shattered man home. When the mourners laughed at Jesus, he looked foolish. The man looked foolish. But the man's faith was not misplaced, and Jesus welcomes the girl back to life, no doubt giving her back to her father. But she cheated death. It's just not possible. And even if true, it's not fair. This kind of thing just isn't supposed to happen. The Gospels are telling us that God is free and has chosen to do this kind of thing. God chooses to work through foolish things. For the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. It isn't supposed to happen, but faith gives them to us. Abraham and Sarah got their son. In that promise, we get God's offer of friendship on the same terms. 50 years ago, I heard a call to be a priest. I didn't know it'd take that long. Faith is foolish. Action and imagination. Time-taking. Heart-breaking. Jesus gave that little girl another life, and in a different way, her father must have got another life too. In a different way again, her family and community all would have felt new life from her life. New life rippled out to those who heard the report and it keeps rippling out. And that annoying woman who reached out and touched the edge of Jesus' cloak, you know, when Jesus is clearly needed elsewhere. Isn't Matthew saying that Jesus had given her new life too? Today, we will shortly have Lorenzo's baptism. Lorenzo's parents have acted in faith, and Lorenzo too, because he was brought here by his parents, he trusts his parents. This is the way of faith, that Lorenzo receives the promise of salvation through baptism, both a mystery and a grace, freely given, a priceless gift which no amount of money can buy. Lorenzo is also making history. When he's older, we can join him to look back on this day, his baptism in the name of the triune God. The day we joined his parents and godparents, declaring trust in God and claiming the promise of life for Lorenzo. Our faith and actions as Christ's body are part of holding Lorenzo in faith. Faith isn't just individual. The restored girl with the radiant smile will tell you that. Let's do this together. Amen.